I might miss something if I'm not there or whatever. So you need to learn to self-regulate. You need to learn sometimes that I just need to go off and have a coffee. I need a break from everyone. I need some space. You know? Or you need to learn, I don't need to do this ATM. I can just sit at the side and observe people doing it. But it's a hugely important part of learning, the ability to self-regulate and to know when you need to take a break, how long you need to take a break for, and how you can then re-enter the process again. Great. Okay. We haven't got the whiteboard. So we're going to continue on with more ATMs today. And again, just as in, especially in November, you'll see that the ATMs just sort of link into one big continuous lesson. You know? It's just like one really big ATM, and we just keep looking at things from a slightly different perspective. Yeah? Another way for you to get an understanding of it. So could you come to standing first? And again, what are some of the things that you've learnt to pay attention to in standing? So what is it, if someone wants to call something out, what are some of the things you might attend to? Your feet, and what would you attend to about your feet? Okay, so does everyone want to, first of all, start off there? Yeah? So the feet. But again, is it just, so I can pay attention to my feet. So one way that we've got is where's the weight? Where's the weight distribution on my feet? So is it more to the inside? Is it more to the outside? Anything else you could pay attention to with your feet, maybe? That's a very good one here. In the temperature, yeah. And is it different to maybe other parts of yourself, or is one side different to the other? Anything else with your feet? Your movability, yeah. So what direction are you sort of already most easy to move in? No? What directions are more readily available for you to move in? Yeah, so differences between the two legs, yeah? Is my weight more on one leg than the other? No. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so literally just feeling what's it like to transfer. How do I organise to transfer the weight? And again, what direction does that go in? Oh, it's another. And they're all giving us different, a little bit of a different information about it. Anything else about feet? Where do you move? Okay, so in your feet, and again, hopefully you're all scanning these as we're doing them. So where does the movement start in your foot? No? So that's going to require you to get a more detailed, maybe even thought of the bones of the feet, maybe. The joints that are available to move in your foot. Do you have a picture of the bones of your feet? Do you know through your experience what movements happen in different parts of your feet? Maybe another one could be the pressure of the contact. Do some parts feel heavier or lighter on your feet? So what's something else you can pay attention to other than your feet? Oh, this is still your feet, so how wide? So the width and the length. So the alignment of your feet. Yeah. From each other, so the distance between them. How comfortable you are. Aches and pains. Oh, yeah, that little bit there, it's really... Okay, so we'll move up to your hips, yeah? And what does that mean, how your hips are feeling? So what are you actually scanning for when you say, how are my hips feeling? So you're sort of looking at for the relationship, you could say, between the movement in your hips and your feet. Would that? Yeah? So you're starting to look, I've got an awareness of my feet. How do my hips tie in with that? So spreading your attention. Yeah? So what other parts can you spread your attention to in standing? Sorry? Is one hip more forward than the other one? Yeah. So again, how are the hips relating? And does that maybe relate to where the weight is on your feet? So we sort of get the details and then we can start to build relationships between them. And where are the shoulders? So where are the So how free is my head to move in different directions in this?
Brings me to what's my spine doing? From the base of the spine to the top of the head, it's like, what's the movability around that standing?
So again, you're starting to build up a bigger picture, starting from your feet, of how things are connected to it, how all these different parts of you are in your image. And what does that, how do you check that? Well, it depends if the balance is an abstract concept of what you think your balance should be, or if you're actually coming in and deciding on what feels easier for me. That's a big difference that we do in Feldenkrais. Yeah? The things that we do in our heads. But can we just come back to this one, because I think this is a really important one. Yeah? Because again, if you're in dynamic stability, which is a term we use in Feldenkrais, or more unstable equilibrium. Yeah? So you can find instability. What you're looking for is all of those little adjustments. So we're never looking for someone being able to stand perfectly still. Because even within that, there should be postural adjustments going on. So if I'm because if I'm balancing and I'm just holding really still, even the movement of my eyes should have to change the tonus. No? So I think what's interesting when you say, I can feel my muscles, where do you feel them a lot, Fiona? Yeah? Yeah. So you get an idea that what would happen if you just let yourself go a little bit side to side instead? So again, it's these ideas that we get that it should be that I should be. Balance is about being really straight. And yet, you know, you can even look at a tightrope walker. Are they ever totally still? Never. There's always. No? Because that's their balance reactions coming in to finely tune them. So again, sorry, was it you, Vishali? Your knees. So Vishali, you can tell from just what she says that the alignment of my patella and the knee joint, that it's gorgeous. You're using a more internal map, if you like, that you're mapping out where your skeleton is, mapping out where your kneecap is, mapping out where your femur is. Yeah? So it's a more skeletal map, whereas you could say, Fiona, you were mapping a little bit more at that moment in muscle. Huh? Breathing. Yay. Breathing. And what do you know? Hang on. What do you notice about your breathing? Boy, we could start a whole conversation here. Remember, because we did a lot in that first segment on observing breathing. Can you remember any of the things that we paid attention to? Yeah. Yeah, the location, whether it was the speed, as you said, whether it's a deeper breath or a more shallow breath, where the breath is. What were some of the other things we paid attention to? Where it initiated from, where you felt it was coming from. Remember anything? Whether it's fast or slow, yeah. And the phases, whether it was what was happening on the inhale, the exhale, whether there were pauses in there or not. Any others? Absolutely. So how does it propagate, if you like? So how does it initiate, and then how? And what I loved the way you said it, Jude, was it gave me that idea of how does my breath move me? Huh? Not that it's just something happening inside of me, but how does my breath move me? Absolutely, whether you're holding your breath. Huh? Any more with the breath first? Yeah, absolutely. So the directions that the breath moves in, is it more, a forward back or side to side, up down, or the rhythm and the volume? Effort's a great one. Am I working? Do I feel that I'm working to breathe? Nose or mouth breathing. Yeah. So what happens in the upper airways? And how does that influence where I breathe? As you said, we know breathing only really happens in this part of ourselves, but any movement we can feel throughout ourselves. So what you're saying is I can feel that movement of my breath throughout, right down to my toes. You can sense it. It exists. Oh, I'm interested to know, do you ever think of it going to your fingers as well? Yeah. Yeah. So again, and if you were going to stand and scan all of this detail, it's like, so maybe it's just sometimes as easy, does my breath feel easy? Do I even have to think about it? Is it just going along on its nice, easy little rhythm that I don't have to pay attention to? So someone else said arms.
Yeah, I said
Mm.
yeah, like whether my arms are actually whether they're just kind of hanging from my shoulders, or whether, which is my habit, is whether they're like whether they're more held, which is just held against the body, or whether they're actually more firm
Mm.
to actually
Mm.
sort of hang there.
So that's nice. Again, scanning for sort of a level of effort throughout yourself. Are you putting extra effort in somewhere that isn't really necessary?
I think the first thing that I scanned for when you asked was what's actually holding me up against gravity, like where in my body am I generating that and for me it's like my knees locking and my quads working really hard. So it's an effort again, but it's what's actually holding me up. I feel like if someone knocked me out from the back of the knees I'd just go because the rest of me is sort of floppy.
So it's sort of like a bigger question there, isn't it, that you're framing your... So rather than you simply thinking, let me scan myself in standing, you're asking it more, I'm going to ask this category of how do I actually support myself in space? And then use that question to frame a scan. No? So again, they're the things that we do. So I could say, I'm standing here. What am I standing here for? To do what? Because always remember that Feldenkrais is about the ability to act in and on the world. Huh?
Subsequently from a couple of comments and actually observing a couple of people from behind, maybe also what I would like to do to make myself comfortable. Because what I noticed, what you said, hold your hands like this, some people stand like that. So obviously there's certain things which make us more comfortable. So maybe even how we would like to support ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Always can I make myself more comfortable? Absolutely. One thing that we haven't said that I'm just going to put in is the space around you. Yeah? So we've talked about being able to move into different spaces. So is it easier for me to move forward or back? But how do you actually sense the space around you? How do you sense what's above you? How do you sense what's out to your right? How do you sense what's out to your left? How do you sense what's behind you? So what's this? How do you sense where you are in the room, in your relationship to the walls in the room? So that's another big part, because sometimes we can get a little bit lost in the internal and forget always that this works about acting in the world and moving in the world and adapting to the world. So this is a big part. And to really notice, do I have much image of what's behind me? And again, most people who really struggled with that ATM that we were talking about yesterday and they couldn't find the back of their head, probably don't have a great image, a really clear image of the space behind them. Because obviously we can't use our eyes to sense the space behind us. But it should be pretty clear what's behind us.
There's also a natural response to something like getting too close to someone, you do react naturally. Yeah? It's uncomfortable. Yeah?
That's
So
also
there is
that's
that-
culturally determined how close.
Hugely culturally determined.
Yeah. And
But
also
there's still individual differences. Some people you can come up real, and it depends on the person. Again, it's totally on the context. But culturally, yeah. Oh, when you go to some countries and you're in those crowded little trains and people are lying all over you. And anyway, just have a walk. You've been standing for a while. But again, it's really great to hear how many distinctions you're able to start to make about your standing. So, what do you scan for in walking? So you have to be aware of your you have to be aware of your environment much more, don't you? No? Obstacles. No? All of a sudden, your attention has to go more external.
It just gets broader.
So this is what we're constantly doing, because can you feel now, because you're walking, and if you go a little bit faster maybe and still have to avoid everything, your attention's going to be taken. Some part of your attention is going to be taken just on navigating your way through space.
No, we're all dependent.
And come back to your mats. So this is what we're constantly doing. We're changing foreground, background. And this ability to keep this alive and to continually be able to keep shifting our attention, to keep moving it, and to move it dependent on what we're doing. So have a lie on your back. And you can come up with your own things that you're interested in scanning on your back. So just see what you come up with that has meaning for you. And when you're ready, come up to sitting. Hey, don't tell me you're already addicted to the floor. No, I can just see it, you know, the blankets are going on. And, off I go. Cross one leg in front of the other. And feel with one leg crossed in front of the other. And again, feel free as we go on. If at any time you want to get up and use a chair, feel free. So how does whichever leg you've got in front influence where your weight is on your pelvis? So you probably have to try the other leg in front to see what happens. But just really feel if one leg is in front, your weight won't be in the middle. I'm saying it pretty, unless you're really disconnected in your hips and from your weight won't be in the middle. No? So feel even to change your legs. Can you feel what has to happen in your pelvis? What happens? Or you have to take the weight off one leg. It depends, doesn't it, if you're moving both legs together or if you're doing one at a time. So is there a difference? How would you move one leg at a time? So you've got to somehow organise your weight to allow one leg to be light. So you sort of straighten it out, and then you straighten out the other one, and then you bend in and really get a sense of how you do this. How do you shift your weight to do this? So for you, it's rolling back, yeah? There's many different directions you can take your pelvis in to do this. You can go to the side to do it. You could use your hands to help out, to increase your base of support. And you know, while you're doing it, and the people in the front might want to do a flip around, just check out the different ways that people do it. Huh? So part of your attention is on your own experience, but just have a look. How do people organise to get one leg free, or both legs at the same time, to so do they go straight back? Do they go to the side? Maybe it's possible to go forward. For you. But you're trying to do two legs. So what happens if you go to the side and do one leg? No, you're still doing two legs. Can you do one leg, just straighten one out? You don't even have to, just straighten it out. Do you have to lift it away from the floor to straighten it out? Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. Your foot can stay on the ground at all times. Yeah, does that make it easier? See, sometimes we're so unaware of the difficulties that we make for ourselves. Because obviously, to lift the weight of a whole leg, you have to organise to get all of the weight off it. If you keep your foot on the floor, you can just lessen the weight on it. Yeah? It's really easy, isn't it?
It is. So why am I feeling you know, is it just habits that are born out of the way you move?
It's a habit.
But I think it depends on your fitness and your muscle strength too. I know I do classes for people to get up from the floor, or the people, they need their hands to shift weight too.
You could say it's fitness and it's strength. I would always say it's organisation. But you do move it. Yeah, you allow the movement to go through it. No? But I think it's a really great question, Fiona, because that's so much easier, isn't it? See, I don't agree with you. You're holding your breath. Whether you think it or not, you are holding your breath. Can you feel that? Yeah. I'm not disputing any of that. You know, we're finding our way. I'm just saying that often we get caught in, oh, but this is easy. That's the way I've always done it. And that's where the importance of exploring options comes in. Because if you don't explore options, you'll never know. Huh? Because you're just... So really remember, the brain is a predictor. This is really important to understand. The brain predicts. If it didn't, we would have to think about everything we did. So as soon as I say to you, change your legs, your brain's already fired off a pattern. It's already predicted, that's what I'm doing, there's the pattern for it. I think it's an organisational thing again. What's the way that you understand how to move in space? Where are the directions that are more known to you?
They never are allowed to go on all fours when they're babies because it's culturally inappropriate. So it's a learned things rather than whether you're frightened of it or not.
Can I ask, how they always say the brain time is the most efficient path to doing anything.
No.
That's not necessarily, you're saying that's not.
Well, it does find, it does look for the most efficient path, but then once it's got what we've found to be the most, what we've found at that time to be the most efficient path, that then becomes the habit. And yet we know to improve any skill, and any skill, it needs refinement and practice. And to do that, you have to be able to attend to what you're doing, listen, if you like, to what you're doing, and really explore different ways of doing something. Yeah. I don't think anything gets abandoned in the brain, as far as I understand. You're just making different connections. You're building more associations. So you could think a habit is like, it's had so much, I really like this metaphor, it's like it becomes the Grand Canyon. Yeah? It's been, or a railway line, you know, it's just had so many, that it just, off it goes on its. So what you're trying to do is, can I find a little stream that goes off maybe? But, you know, and that's where learning takes time. You know, you just don't change a pattern. And you have to change all of yourself. And as I said, I think that was Feldenkrais's profound understanding. You know, it's like you'll get mums in with, you know, oh, my baby's got a flat head. Did we ever have flat heads? Can you remember all of this about babies having flat heads? Yes. When we were little? No, I think it's SIDS. I'm sure it's SIDS. I'm convinced it's SIDS. Babies never used to have flat heads. Sudden infant death syndrome. So you weren't allowed to put babies on their stomachs or sides. Yeah, babies you've got no idea. They have these really squashed skulls.
Otherwise you couldn't get born. And that's
yeah, because the skull is soft. It is adaptable to be born. Yeah, you just see them all the time now, these babies with. The fear that... Anyway, that's beside the point. But what's really interesting is, again, if you've got a flat head, it's... I shouldn't be horrible, these little kids. It's not their neck and their head. It's all of them that has to change. Because everything is adapted. Every part of their organisation has adapted to have their head in a particular way. So one eye becomes more dominant really quickly. They shift their weight to one side. So everything. And so you can't change it by simply going, I'll turn the baby's head the other way. Everything has to change. You're finding more options. Yeah? And that's why whenever we're under stress, we will automatically go back to the patterns that we associate with being under stress. The nice thing is once you're aware of them, you can come in and modify them much more quickly and not have to get stuck there.
There's just one other thing in relation to crossing legs. The social expectation, certainly that I have, is that you should be able to do it quickly. And you should be able to do it symmetrically so that you sit like a Buddha comfortably. And that can last for, I don't know, 5 seconds feeling comfortable. You know, so it's also that.
It's the beliefs that we have. You know, that's what we're confronting continually. Yeah? Yeah, I sit on the floor quite a bit. You know, it's really interesting. Feldenkrais does this beautiful rant in the what I was reading from yesterday, and it's about this poor woman, and she's sitting in the yoga, what do you call it, the lotus position, and he's just giving her this absolute rant about why she's sitting like that. I can feel for the woman, you know. But the point he's trying to say is no child would ever sit like that. You usually would not see a child sit in the lotus position. It's, you know, and it's not that it's good or bad. That wasn't his point. If you want to sit in the lotus position, but why would you sit like that every time you sit? Unless it's a belief that you have that this is good sitting. Just like we have all those beliefs about what good breathing is. And you see people all the time who come in and I've been told that this is how I should breathe. So again, what we're trying to do in a way is return people to what feels best for them, what works for them. Not what someone says would be better for them to do, but what works for them. No? But again, coming back to you, this ability to explore options, which is what we're doing, that it gives you that opportunity to get in under your habit.
Often there's a contradiction in it, because some people who are in a habit that works and feels the best. People who are in a habit, you know, I mean, I know it myself, you know, if you explore new things, it doesn't feel right. So that contradicts itself. What works best and what feels best might not be the best. That's what we also unlearn in Feldenkrais, really.
I'll leave you with that one to keep investigating that one on your own. Martina? Well, I think what is there's no doubt that I can explore options, and through exploring options, just like you were doing yesterday with where are my feet on the floor. Yeah? And some of you, there's no doubt about it, that your first approximation will have been more comfortable. That you were well organised to lie on the floor, and within that you could scan through and go, yeah, my breathing's easier here when I do that. Just all the things we scanned through this morning. Is my head free to move? Have I got movability across the floor? Can I move in different directions? So I think what's interesting is what we're making the decision on. Is it just simply on this feels better? But that's a little bit like me standing and going, I can feel my feet. That's great. I can feel my feet. But what do I do with my feet? You know? What are the more distinctions I can make that give me more information. But simply, I'll be with you in a second, simply by going through that process, maybe there's something a little bit different that emerges. That you begin to notice something that maybe made you more comfortable in what you were originally doing, and that's learning. You've expanded your sense of yourself there. So,
I was just going to say there's sometimes a difference between what feels right and what feels comfortable.
yes.
I remember I was having coffee with one of my friends who's a Feldenkrais practitioner, and I was talking about how, I've got to keep, I used to really hunch this shoulder, but, I try to keep it back now because, it's good posture. Because otherwise, if I just let it go, it does this. And she goes, but doesn't that feel comfortable? And I was like, what is she talking about? Sure, it feels comfortable, but it's wrong. But it does feel comfortable, and I was working too hard, and it was giving me all these neck cramps, which I didn't realise at the time. But I was comfortable? What are you talking about? Anyway.
It's
So
true.
sometimes it's about finding what feels comfortable, not what... This feels right because I can feel that working, and I know that this is... Whereas if you don't feel it working, that's probably sometimes better.
So I think that's the thing. What's comfort? Comfort doesn't mean in the Feldenkrais method that you're ready to give up all your support and go to sleep. Feldenkrais would say this is a terrible position to sleep in. This is Feldenkrais. Because if something happened to me, I would really have to do a lot to readjust. Yeah? Because here, I've given up all my support. Yeah? If, however, I went to sleep and kept my support, so I'm still now over my base of support, yeah? Given up any unnecessary work, but it's still really easy for me to move. But I can sleep there. And you've got to remember his background. He came from that survival is paramount. And he'd often make these wonderful discussions about, you people don't know what survival means. You've never found out what it means to have to know the importance of being able to move and to act. But I could sleep here, I promise you, I could sleep there. But I'm ready. And that's the big question. What is comfort? So comfort isn't relaxation. Comfort for us is equalising the tonus. It's that there's no more work going on than is necessary to do it, but that we're still ready to move. And we've got different places that we can move in, that our breathing is easy, our head is free. And as you go on, you'll find these things becoming more and more apparent, what we're looking for in so-called ideal organisation.
And they could sit like that for an hour. They sat at the market like that for an hour, and they were comfortable.
Yeah.
If you ask any one of us to sit like this for half an hour, we probably would be...
We couldn't do it, most of us, for 5 seconds. So what's your point?
My point is, it's a lot what you are conditioned and brought up with from small, what we find comfortable.
You're talking about positions. I'm not talking about
Comfort.
positions. I'm talking about comfort. So what is comfort? Why are they comfortable there, Martina?
They're relaxed. They can look around.
Yeah? Can they move easily from there?
I guess so.
Yeah.
They talk, they eat like that.
Yeah. They can do lots of different functions there.
And
That's the whole
can
point
get
of
up
what
quickly,
comfort
I
is
guess.
that we're looking for. And we're finding our comfort in more and more positions.
So yeah, I think it's what we brought up with.
I've never disputed that it's what we're brought up with, but I bet there's people that I've seen in India who aren't comfortable sitting like that.
But like when Feldenkrais, developed his movement, he was also more into one culture.
No,
Now
I
even
don't agree with you. I
Not
think he
more
was-
the Caucasian culture. But looking around here, we got a lot of different cultures here.
But I don't think that, I
the
think you're
comfort
getting,
level-
anyway, I think
Yeah.
we'll stop. We'll continue this conversation. Is it a nice one? I think we'll continue this conversation later because I think we're getting lost in definition and I don't think it's really going anywhere. So let's come back to uncrossing and crossing your legs. Sorry? You can have your hands wherever you want them. No? So you find an easy way for you to cross and uncross your legs.
The difference is, like, if you'd asked me quickly, I would have probably gone like that. But because you asked slowly, I did this whole different thing, which was less effort and comfortable, but not as quick.
So could you find how to do something quickly with and make it just as easy?
It's even if I do it, it still takes that little millisecond longer.
Yeah, but do okay.
It would probably be quicker.
Yes. So the thing is, if you can do something slowly, you can do it as quick as you want.
Yeah, you just need to.
So the quick way you do, I would encourage you to start doing it much, much slower that way and find out how you could do that much more easily as well. Yeah? Okay, so you've all found an easy way to cross and uncross your legs where your breathing's really easy. Okay, so have whichever leg you want in front. And could you put your hands on your head and decide which hand would make sense to have in front and which hand would make sense to have behind. And just play around with rolling your head between your hands. So you're really exploring. So your hands constantly moving across and your elbows are wide. Let's help you out here, Karen, because you didn't do this last. So what you're doing is it's more like you will roll. So your hand and your head constantly changing contact. Yeah? And again, the puzzle, the question is, which hand would make more sense to have in front? Because by having one leg in front, you're already asymmetrical. By having one leg crossed in front like this, so what would you pay attention to? So we did a little bit of this yesterday. And try it with the other leg in front. And again, really check with the other leg in front, where's the weight on your pelvis? So, is it possible? Maybe you can't feel a difference at this point in time. We'll see maybe if it gets clearer as we go on. So could you find the easiest hand to have at the front? And begin to keep rolling your head between your hands and changing your legs over. And you're looking for quality. You're really scanning. Did I hold my breath there? Did my pelvis stop moving? So we're really using this rolling of your head as a real feedback device. How can you just keep your head rolling? Hands rolling your head. What rhythm do you find to do with your head? And can you really keep feeling your head, hand rolling your head? I'll just help you bend over here. So got it? So it's more dunk. 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 Yeah. So how do you go? This is what we were talking about. You've got to spread your attention here. There's so many things to pay attention to. Huh? So what's not important here is whether you do it. What is important here is your ability to start to spread your attention. Your ability to find a speed that gives you the time to spread your attention. Your ability to not get caught on one detail. Does anyone want to say any of the details you might get caught on? Breathing. You get too caught on your breathing. Yeah? So to really notice that when something stops, what's happened to your attention? Has it at that point got fixated? Yeah? Have you got lost in a detail there rather than having this bigger picture? They're just such beautifully designed lessons to allow you to explore really quite abstract ideas in a really concrete way. How do I spread my attention?
Should I be trying to find the best way to work with that, or ignore it altogether and go to my other leg? Is that what it's about?
That's your decision.
Okay, so we're not.
What do you think would help?
Trying to adjust myself so I'm comfortable.
So could you move your legs a little bit to make yourself more comfortable? Do they have to be in as close to you? Do they have to be in as close to you? What would happen if they were further away? Yeah, what would happen if you put something under your pelvis? What would happen if you put something under your pelvis? I'm not saying if it'll work or not. I'm just...
What are we trying to do? Are we trying to get this comfortable, or are we trying to say, let's just always cross the other leg so it works that way?
You're not trying to get one part of you comfortable. You're trying to get all of you. Adapt your position at the beginning. Do it on a chair. If you know that your attention is going to be taken by this leg isn't comfortable, most of your attention's just been taken up. You know, it's that thing. I don't know how many of you have read Norman Doidge's new book. Anyone here read it? It's very good. Anyway. The brain healing itself, or the brain's way of healing. That's his second one. And it's really interesting because there's some brilliant things in it. And what I really love about it, it's all to me about how we can heal. Well, he calls it, I suppose it's using the brain, but use all the different senses that we do have. So he comes at it from sound and light and movement. So there's a huge chapter on Feldenkrais. It's the best. I found it more out about Feldenkrais from reading that than I think I knew about some of his history. That's the sequel from The Brain That Changed Itself. Anyway, my story in the Weekend Australian, they'd put a lot of the first chapter of the book in, which was a man working with chronic pain. No? And what's not in the book but was in the article, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, is that pain, acute pain, like when you stubbed your toe or I stubbed my toe, if you actually give the brain acute pain and you look at how much of the brain is involved or distracted, if you like, by the pain, it's probably about, I can't remember the figures exactly, but it was something like 10% of the brain in acute pain gets taken over. Huh? Chronic pain, 25%. So much easier to get hijacked, if you like, by chronic pain than acute pain. So chronic pain is going through much more of the brain's tracts. I found that absolutely fascinating, those figures.
Not just the pain, it's also being chronic pain is secondary pain. Secondary pain encompasses thinking, analysing. That's why chronic pain takes so much over the brain.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. That's why with chronic pain you feel you can't think properly. But though in acute pain I don't think I can think at all, really. But no, I understand. But hang on, let me make my point. Okay, so I thought that was really fascinating. So what this guy did was develop this amazing way of using his visual cortex. I'd say he was very visual. He imagined the brain working differently, and by paying incredible attention and spending many, 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 many hours, he got rid of his pain. It's a fantastic story. No? But he was prepared to have, as he said, what was the word he used? Not resilience. He said, I have to work harder than this pattern in the brain. So he was resolute, absolutely dogged in his ability to do that. So what gets really interesting, though, is that pain does hijack us. Yeah? Constantly, yeah? And so if we're doing that, a lot of our attention is taken up with that. So that's why in Feldenkrais we are so looking for finding the easy, pleasant sensation. Now, if someone's in pain all the time, and they can't find anywhere that's comfortable, all you try and do is get them in a position where they're more comfortable. But you're still making distinctions. Do you know what I mean? You're still trying to find something where less of the brain or less of the attention is taken up with the pain, and you've got more out. I was just telling Barb this morning, after I'd read that article, and I went to the supermarket, stubbed my toe, putting the stuff in, and all I could see was blood everywhere. I didn't have my glasses with me. I couldn't see what had happened. I knew nothing terrible, but it was awful. And I thought, I've just got to get home, which wasn't very far. So I'm sitting in the car and I thought, I'm applying this principle because this pain is taking all my attention. So I'm just sitting in the car. I can feel my shoulders and I can feel my feet and I can feel my hands on the wheel and I can see the car out to the right. It worked brilliantly. It worked absolutely brilliantly. But that's what you're doing. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're trying to work out, how do I create a learning environment for myself where that's not distracting me?
Like pain management, which is research, especially with mindfulness, actually doesn't distract. Like you say, focuses, and that goes where Feldenkrais comes in too, that you're actually in the here and now. Everything is here.
We're just using focus differently, that's all, because for us focus is not focus. So I think we're just getting a little bit lost in definition here. So focus for me means inclusive awareness. No? That I can spread my attention. That's what we're after. No? So that's what I'm saying. If you're in a situation, you're sitting there going, this is just taking over, you need to change your position. No? Because it's just going to get in the way of you being able to learn something or find a different way to do it. Okay. So has anyone worked out which hand should be in front? The opposite? Huh? I love your can'ts, Martina. Your can'ts. So go slower. Do less, go slower. Because if your neck leads all the time, you need to stop right at the beginning and go, can something else initiate here? Because you're already in your habit. No? Again, that was what's really important. The habit, as I said, is there before you've even had time to think about it. So where we can come in and change is this gap between I intend to do something and I'm going to act on it. That's where you're exploring options. Yeah? Sorry? That's fine. Okay. Come up to standing. I think it's time we took a break. Far too much talking. Sorry about that. You will be, but I think you need a break. And just feel you're standing at the moment. And get a sense of it. And then could you put your hands on your head and roll your head a little bit in standing? And feel how far through yourself do you feel that? What are your shoulders doing? What is your pelvis doing? Is anything happening in your feet? So how far through yourself do you feel that rolling of your head? Sorry?
How much easier is that?
Easier than in sitting, you mean,
Yeah.
Karen? Okay, try the other way. So this is a beautiful movement, I think, to start to work out some of your preferences about which arm likes to go where and help you because you didn't do it yesterday. So what we're doing, yeah, you got it. And so the hand and the head are changing contact. No, let your fingers slide there. But don't slide them, sorry. That's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, go for a walk. That's very nice. And have a break. And we'll come back and do the rest of the lesson. Very quick.
With the hand, it's like you're actually, the hand is moving itself. I mean, the hand.
Let your hands go soft.
That's probably my softest.